Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. Thank you for joining us for tonight's event, Level Up and Stand Out, Mastering Your Portfolio, together with three fantastic artists from Iron Galaxy Studios. My name is Adam Hartel. I'm a Gnomon representative and your host for this evening, and it's my honor to introduce our guests tonight. But before I do that, I just want to take care of a couple announcements off the top. I'd like to thank Lenovo for Powered by NVIDIA for sponsoring this event. It's thanks to them that we are able to bring you some fantastic free educational events like tonight to you to be able to see. This live stream is going to be added to our stream catalog and will be available to watch on our Twitch and YouTube channels after the event concludes. So if you weren't able to join us for the entire event, or you know someone else who would be interested in see it, please feel free to pass that along to them so that they can watch it as well. Our events, including this stream, are also available with closed captioning via Facebook Live. So if you or someone you know is in need of that service, you can find a link on our Facebook page channel in the chat to be able to join that. So with that out of the way, I would like to introduce our guests. First off, we are going to be joined by Chad Newhouse, who is Studio Art Director at Iron Galaxy Studios. And he's been working with the studio for more than 10 years. And Chad is responsible for crafting the creative art direction and artistic vision on projects at Iron Galaxy. He brings over 20 years of experience in the game industry to Iron Galaxy, where he oversees art direction, project management, internal teams, and its outsourcing partners. Prior to Iron Galaxy, Chad served as a VP Creative at Blue Shift Interactive, Art Director at 3DO, and EAI. A little bit further into the stream, we'll also be joined by Roger Yuen, who is art director at Iron Galaxy. He has been art director for a little under a year there. Before his time at Iron Galaxy, Roger had the privilege to work with many great teams in unique industries at places like Electronic Arts, SG Interactive, and Robomondo. Through his career, started in art creation, it then grew into team building and management. At Iron Galaxy, Roger is responsible for game art direction, artist mentorship, and setting studio art quality bars. And then we'll also be joined by Tom Carbone, who is the hiring, recruiting, and social media at Iron Galaxy. Tom's been at Iron Galaxy since 2016. And in his time at the company, he has focused primarily on hiring, recruiting, recruitment branding, and social media. As the company grew over the past few years, Tom's day-to-day administrative hiring work has been replaced by longer-term recruitment, web content, and candidate pipeline projects for the studio. As a part of his recruiting duties, Tom leads Iron Galaxy's university outreach efforts and is the main point of contact for any student looking to get their foot in the door at the studio. So with that, I am first going to welcome Roger to the stream. Chad. Chad, thank you so much for joining this evening. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us from your studio and for sharing with us really incredible information, I think, for any artist, which is, you know, everything you're going to be sharing with us about portfolios, what you guys are looking for at your studio. So let's buckle up. I'll hand the ball to you. Okay. The floor is yours, sir, and you can take us out.
Oh, thank you so much. So we're super excited to be here to talk about leveling up your portfolio today. First off, we'd like to start by sharing a little bit about who Iron Galaxy is, our art team, and some of the projects and opportunities that we've had to work on. The studio was founded in 2008 by Dave Lang, and since then, we've grown to around 180 employees across multiple studios. Our company values at Iron Galaxy are our people, our partners, our continuous improvement, and our capability. We value everyone's experiences, their backgrounds, their unique ideas, and their perspectives. I feel one of the greatest strengths of Iron Galaxy is that everyone, no matter if you're senior or just new in the industry, is really, we want to all try to improve and to grow every day. Our partners, we really strive to build strong and lasting relationships with our partners through our collaboration with one another and the mutual respect that we share. And our continuous improvement We know that making games is super hard, and we never get everything right. So no matter what role we have in a project, we're always trying to strive to grow and to improve. This allows us to be stronger on our future projects. And the capabilities, it's truly amazing to look back to see these amazing titles that our studio and our teams have been a part of. Our art team consists of over 50 talented artists. And because of the variety of projects, our artists have a primary skill set, for example, a character modeler or a UI artist, but they also are generalists and can hop onto different roles if needed. The cool part about this is when an artist is able to experience another role, they'll grow and they'll bring back that knowledge into their primary skill set. They'll learn new techniques or new processes through this experience. And this will help them become better artists. Through leadership of our art directors and our lead artists, they work together to create the visual direction of the projects. They also make sure that the art direction, the quality, is followed and implemented throughout the development of the game. Our 3D artists have our environment artists, our character artists, our prop artists, and our set dressers. So they create the sculpts, the models, the textures, and really integrate assets into the engine and make that world and characters just come to life. Most people think of this role with 2D artists of user interface or UI graphics and the HUD. But some of the roles of the 2D artists that you may not realize are the motion graphics. These are animated 2D graphics, creating fluid screen transitions or adding those dynamic elements. These elements can really polish the UI and make that interface pop. They also create iconography, which are achievement icons or HUD icons. And these kind of icons just need to be readable and usable. The graphic design also is part of their job. And this consists of graphic elements like signage or banners that we can use within the environments. Our technical artists, their role is to support the team. They support the team through the rigging and characters and animated objects, creating tools and scripting, which makes the team's processes more efficient. They also create shaders and materials and work with our rendering engineers to capture the look we are striving for, but also make them efficient from a rendering standpoint. And our visual effects team, well, they're very technical, but they're also visual. And even though they create stunning visual VFX, the role is very technical too. So we needed it when in need, our VFX team creates the rigging and weighting the characters, or they may write scripts, but they really just love to create VFX. Our concept team, they work with ideation and work with the art directors and the design department to come up with that initial vision of the game. They also create illustrations. And these high quality illustrations can be used for showing a direction of the game, or using inspiration for the game, or creating for marketing purposes. They also create development concepts, and these are created throughout the production. These are orthographic views of assets that we want to build. These help inform the 3D modeler what they are creating from all sides. And our animators work closely with designers to ensure the gameplay and readability of the animations is what we're looking for. They also work with the art director and the lead artist to make sure the visual quality bar is hit for this project. Now let's talk about projects a little bit. At Iron Galaxy, we work on a lot of different types of projects with varying art styles. Sometimes we're the lead developer, which is the full development of the project. Sometimes we work on port projects, which is taking an existing IP or project to another platform. And other times we work on creative projects, supporting other creative teams on their IP or their projects. This includes ideation and concept of the game. When you're the lead developer, you need to create the game all the way to shipping the game. This includes all aspects: the art, the design, the programming, the QA, and the production. For Racketeer, this was a new IP for Iron Galaxy that we developed. It was a key launch title for the Kinect. And it was really a challenge to develop for the Kinect. We had to learn how the Kinect is like an extension of the controller. We had to learn what types of movements would be read by the Kinect, Was it small wrist movements or just the upper body movements? But in the end, we found out that large movements were the best. With Killer Instinct, we developed Season 2 and Season 3 content. We built 18 characters and their environments. One of the challenges of this project was the cadence of the character releases. We had to continually work on the characters and the environments and the next one that we were going to release. It was really rewarding to work on such a treasured IP. And not only do we have the privilege to reinvent these amazing characters from the original Killer Instinct, we were also honored to work closely with the Nez Perce tribe. We were able to update Thunder's characters and accessories, but also we worked closely to create a new character, his younger brother Eagle. The original IP Dive Kick was released across multiple platforms. This was a fun and creative project where every character had a connection or nod to the fighting game community. Our team learned so much about the community, the players, and its culture. My personal favorite part of this project was the ability to be part of EVO. As I helped run some of the Dive Kick tournaments and walk around the event, I was able to see and feel the hype and excitement of fighting games. I'd never realized that before. It really opened my eyes to how amazing this genre is. And there's Extinction. It's a fast-paced, third-person action game where you fight these gigantic monsters. We learned a lot about the challenges of creating battles on this massive scale, about building custom procedurally generated maps. Not only did we need to build these in an efficient manner, but we also had to make them reusable so that they could be used together in a seamless way. Then we have port projects. So these are taking the existing IP or project to another platform. Sometimes we enhance the game's visuals, and sometimes we have to optimize that content for performance or memory constraints. Some projects, it's just a difficult challenge to even make the game run on the platform to start with. This is where I have to give a huge shout out to our amazing engineers at Iron Galaxy who tackled this challenge before we touch any piece of art. Here's some of the first porting projects that we created at Iron Galaxy. Our UI team recreated the user interface to a high visual quality bar. The art team worked with our programming team to create and add rendering filters to the game. And our team had a lot of fun creating 3D arcade cabinets within the game. Our team also helped bring Crash Bandicoot and Insane Trilogy to PC. We were also able to create and update the user interface to use 4K textures. This was exciting to see the UI visually sharper and on the 4K. Borderlands 2, we ported this to the Vita. On one hand, this was an amazing project to be a part of. It was super fun. It was great collaboration with our partners. But on the other hand, it was a super challenging project. Making sure that we could hit the quality bar of this unique visual style on the PS Vita was definitely a challenge. We had to rewrite all the shaders, optimize the meshes and textures, redo all UI elements, and recreate the VFX to make sure they were performant. On top of that, there was a lot of content included in the DLC packs, which made just for a ton of content to work on. And with creative projects, this is supporting the creative teams and work collaboratively with them in the development of a project. We were tasked with breaking the SSD streaming ability. And we created these landscapes with mountains and rivers, with temples that we flew through. This was high quality geometry and textures that we were streaming through into the engine. And we figured we would definitely hit the limitations with this, but we didn't, and we weren't successful. So the team decided then to put up 100 4K streaming videos in the same environment and run the same test. We would surely hit the limitations this time, but again, we failed and we could not make it stutter or lag. So this is a really fun and interesting project that really opened our eyes to how technology can help games. And lastly, there's Batman Origins, the Nightfall DLC pack. We created 5 total maps, 3 combat maps, and 2 Predator maps. We also updated the 2 player skins. This was a really fun IP to work on. The team was very collaborative. We were able to explore these environments visually and creatively. And we added the story elements throughout the levels to really make them feel together. So that's a brief walkthrough about Iron Galaxy and some of the games that we worked on. Now I'm going to send it over to Roger, who's going to talk about leveling up your portfolios.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Chad, for the introduction. I think one of the things about Iron Galaxy, the diversity in projects has been an amazing thing for me. I've enjoyed every single bit of it. And we have so many projects going on that I think this leads me into kind of talking to you guys about how to level up and conquer your portfolio, kind of get everything set up so that when you're applying for an opportunity that you're noticed and you're recognized. So we're all here to do something great. We're all here because we want to take what we've created, present it to the world, and kind of take it to the next level and do something great with our talent and our work. So it's great to have you guys attending and checking out this presentation. So the purpose, honestly, of this presentation is to kind of help guide you through like what simple things you can actually really do for your portfolio, your online presence, to kind of like get it in front of like hiring managers or art directors or company recruiters to get noticed and recognized. We want to make sure that you have a clear website. You want to understand what potential employers are looking for. And honestly, if you display your best work, you have the highest chances of getting recognized and noticed. And then overall, the goal is when you're building a portfolio is to build a clear experience for the viewer. And let me dive into the next one. The reason you want to probably update your portfolio or kind of get your online presence up there is this could be the first time you're looking for a job. You're diving into the industry. You're trying to kind of get your foot in the door. It could be an opportunity for career advancement. Maybe you want to move from like a core level artist to a senior level artist, and you see a great opportunity somewhere else. It's also a great time to update your portfolio and your presence. Or unfortunately, and this happens in all industries, maybe you're laid off. We all know in these times, things can be unexpected, but we always want to be prepared. And I think the goal is, with this information that we'll provide you, like that you'll already be a step ahead when anything like that potentially could happen. So I typically see 5 common problems when we go look through portfolios and we see people that apply. A lot of times the name is not really clear, and their title of what they want to do on their site is not clear. So you'll have somebody's name there, but they might be applying for a concept artist position, but they might be titled a 3D artist or something like that. The next thing would be the site might not be organized, or it might actually have too much content. That can also be a little overwhelming as hiring managers and people that are looking to bring people on. We have a certain amount of time that we can dedicate looking through things, and we honestly want to see your best work first. So the next thing would be your contact info is not prominent or accessible. Now, if we're looking and you fit the bill in terms of what position you're applying for and your title fits and your work is good, the next thing we're going to look for is how to contact you, how to reach out to you. And sometimes, like if your information is not displayed right there, easy to look for, easy to scroll to, we could miss that, and then we might hop over to the next opportunity. Work is not relevant to the job that you're applying for. Make sure that like when you're applying for something, that the work you're placing on your portfolio is relevant to the position you're applying for. An example would be if you're applying for a 3D character artist position, but the majority of your work on your portfolio is concept work. That's great. It might be beautiful concept work, but you just applied for a 3D character artist position, so it doesn't quite line up. And lastly, and this is kind of one of the bigger ones, unfinished or low quality work. Just because work is unfinished and it's like, and you have it in your docket and you want to fill up your portfolio, doesn't always mean you should put it in there. Honestly, unfinished work kind of shows that you didn't have maybe the time or wherewithal to follow through. Seeing things in progress is always great, but like when it comes to the first things you want to present to a potential employer, the work should be finished or at least very close to finished. Now, that's not saying that your work can't be taken to the next level. Really take time to assess where your level of your work is or where that level of that piece is, and then decide if it's unfinished or not. But it's always better to be safe than sorry in terms of displaying work that's like maybe not ready to be displayed. So here are a few things that you should do and some things that you probably shouldn't do when it comes to applying and getting your portfolio out there. A few do's and don'ts. So honestly, the overall thing is you want to be mindful of the people looking at your work and the places you're applying to. You literally have about 10 seconds to kind of make somebody curious to kind of click through to the next level or click through to the next page of your portfolio. So make everything clear and obvious. Make sure your contact information is seen first, your name and your contact information. Because if we like your work, we're going to look back and see who you are. Understand the job posting. Really take time to look at the job posting you're applying for and make sure that fits for you. Be organized and consistent with everything you're naming. I feel like, and this is a thing that within industry, it makes it a lot easier when you're naming things mindfully versus like an example, if you're working in Photoshop and you create a new layer, that layer should have a name. It should not be layer 00, 01, or 02. Take the time to rename something, because honestly, if we see consistency in that, then we know that you're nice and buttoned up and you're prepared to kind of work with others around you. And something that I always do, I didn't always do before, is run spell check and grammar check whenever you do your resumes and your cover letters and anything you might be typing out and displaying in our portfolio. It really, really helps. Some things that you don't want to do are use images for your name and information. I think we might have touched on this a little bit before, but a lot of the times in larger studios, your resume gets run through a filter, and if your name is an image, it won't pick that up, and your resume just kind of goes to the reject pile. So make sure that you're using typed out information. So potentially if you're running through a system like that, because a lot of larger companies have huge filters, that it's readable and it's typed out so that you don't get lost in the shuffle. Don't apply for everything. It sometimes can seem desperate. And if we typically see somebody that's applying for every single job that we have posted, then we know that, honestly, we know that they're probably not reading the job description and seeing what they're fit for. Applying for positions that don't fit you, that kind of relates to the last thing I was just talking about. And don't apply for multiple times to the same job. And sometimes, that's one thing that can help. That is, make sure you track what you do. I have a spreadsheet. I was never a spreadsheet guy before, but when it comes down to looking for opportunities and keeping yourself organized, I have a spreadsheet of places that you would potentially apply for, the responses you got, the date you applied. That's always super helpful when you're going out there and looking for things, because oftentimes companies might rename their job, they might retitle it, and it could have been the job you applied for. So you'll know that if you save the description and you kind of keep track of the things that you're doing. So the next thing is super important. Art first. That's why we're here. That's what you guys are creating. Show your strongest work first. Less is more all the time. 10 great pieces is always better than 30 okay pieces. You get hired for the work you make, honestly. The work, that's the thing. Sometimes when Chad and I are reviewing portfolios, if the work is good, we'll know in the first few pieces, and then we go look for your name and we go look to see maybe your resume and your work history and whatnot. So if the work is good, that's what holds us. That's what grabs our attention. Show consistent and finished work. I think it's, like I was saying before, it's always good to have a work in progress state somewhere within your portfolio, but the first work you show should be finished and consistent, and should be of the same quality all the way across. Show high quality images. We have high quality devices these days. We're looking on phones, we're looking on 4K screens. And I know we're creating at higher quality, so always take that opportunity to show the beauty and the depth and the pixel precision of the art you create. Show work that is well composed. I think this is one of the things that we don't always think about. But if you're showing your work, make sure that first image that displays what that work is composed nicely, framed well, makes me want to click through it. And then when I dive into that page or that post, then I can see all that work in progress stuff. Then I could see how you compose your image, and then I could see your thought process. I'll have a little bit of a visual example later on when we kind of discuss portfolios more deeply. So some things you don't want to do. when it comes to your work is show unfinished artwork or designs. That's kind of one of those things where don't rush to put just anything up there. Take your time and finish your work, because it shows that you know how to go from point A to point B, and polish it off. This can leave a really negative impression if you do show too much unfinished work. For students, try not to show work that's like in your first or second year. We all understand it, and for me specifically, when I was in school a long time ago, my first 2 years, I was learning a ton of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that I was good at, but there was a lot of stuff I was still learning. And honestly, when you've been in the industry long enough and you've seen enough portfolios, you'll know when work is missing that little something. So I would recommend that if you're going to take student work, take it from their later years. Make sure that it is to the level of what you want it to be, and make sure that all the foundations and fundamentals of that work is really set. I wouldn't say like if you had some first year or second year work that you want to rework, that's a good thing as well too, but try not to show the initial first, second year work. Because honestly, when you're in a system like Gnomon or other educational systems, you're going to grow every single class. You're going to learn stuff every single time. Don't ever show everything you've ever done. Honestly, like I've done a ton of stuff, and it's just too much to go through. Honestly, it's one of those things where it's great to have, but like if you show everything you've ever done, it could be overwhelming. And again, the people you're appealing to, the hiring managers and the art directors that are looking through your stuff, have a limited amount of time to look at your stuff. Try not to have too many art sections on your website. I know when it comes to building a website, you can hide certain sections and show certain sections, but if you're applying for, let's say an environment artist position, but you've got a section for 2D art, concept art, VFX and animation, rigging and traditional, I'm not exactly sure where you want to be if you're showing all that work. So try to keep it limited and focused to where you're going to be applying to. And try not to show too many self-made pieces over things that might be built within industry or within a team. Self-made pieces are nice to have, but I would try to focus on not having too many of those if you have the opportunity to show in industry work or work that is leaning more towards like where you've built some things along with the team, because it's one of those things where it can show like your evolution and your dynamics when it comes to working with others. So having purpose, I think a great fit, tilts the scales, honestly. So when you have purpose, do work related to the job position you want. Market yourself as one thing. It's like if you're trying to be a concept artist, make sure you're showing concept art first. And honestly, if you have other talents and skills, we'll look. If the concept art is good, we'll continue to look. But try to market yourself as, especially when you're breaking into the industry, as one thing core, and then after that, you'll have the ability to kind of expand out. Cater and display work to the employer that you're applying to potentially. It's like, in this kind of lands with the show practical project used in industry. It's one of those things where like, if you are applying to a place like Bethesda and you're working on the next Skyrim, you know what Skyrim looks like, the level of detail, the fidelity, and the art style, cater your work to that. If you have a ton of that work, put that type of stuff on your site, versus that if you have a ton of work that might be a little more mobile, game savvy, it won't appeal to that employer. So things that you might want to be careful of when you have purpose is to apply to different industries with the same site. This is one thing where it's like, if you're applying to the game industry versus the design industry versus the marketing industry versus like maybe a completely different industry, you probably want to recurate your site to do so, because they'll be looking for different things. Market yourself as a master of everything is not ever really good, in my opinion. It's one of those things where I've been using Photoshop for a long time, 20 plus years, and I am still not a master of it. So if somebody right out of school tells me they're a master of Photoshop, I'm going to be a little bit skeptical. You might be good at it, and then that's great, but like, it's a program that's got so many avenues to do one thing. Being a master at it, even in your, midway through your career, is going to be kind of tough. I would err on the side of modesty when it comes to this kind of stuff. You might be quite good, but I would highly doubt that you'd be a master. Assume that you understand the position you're applying for. Again, this kind of goes back in this next one as well. Assume your work is fit for the studio. You might have great work that leans towards that position and you might fit that position, but err on the side of modesty, because I think that's, we all appreciate that. Like having confidence is great, but cockiness is something that, will definitely turn an interview the wrong way, or definitely turn the process the other way. If you have the opportunity to kind of get past that next step, kind of appreciate where it is and where you're going. When it comes to the user experience of your website and your portfolio, some of the things that can really help is keep your site simple, fast, and clean. It doesn't have to have these crazy graphics or crazy patterns or super detailed logo. Make it so it's easy to read. The UX has to be fast and easy. Like I have to be able to access your work, access a little bit of a bio, click through your resume, and make sure find out a little bit about you. So one thing that I was going to say that that's super important when you have your resume on your site, make sure it's easily downloadable, perhaps a PDF or a doc format. And honestly, make sure you name your resume something other than resume, because we get a lot of resumes, and when we get resumes sent over from Tom or any of our hiring recruiters and whatnot, it'd be great to have your name, perhaps an underscore, and then the resume name. Otherwise, it's going to save over that other resume potentially, and then you get lost in the shuffle. That's a real simple thing that I think that I've seen happen many times. And even if I really liked your work and I can't find your resume, like I might move on to the next person. So make sure you name it mindfully. Things for experience that you don't want to do is make it difficult to see your work. When I load up the first page of your site, I'd love to see your artwork. Like your name and your artwork should be coming first. I don't need a crazy trailer. I don't need a crazy animated logo intro. Show me your work. That's what I'm looking for. Try not to use charts or graphs to measure your skills. I know a little while ago, it was kind of a trend where you have like Photoshop or Maya listed, and then there's like 10 bullets, and maybe you fill out 8 of those bullets on one and 5 of those bullets on the other. But then you're almost kind of telling me that you're not as good as those 10 bullets. And it's one of those things where it's a cool thing to have in an RPG or something like that, but like on your resume or on your website, I don't think that adds too much value. Also, try not to use images for important information. Like I was saying before, don't use images to display your name or your contact information or the title you're looking for. Use actual text for that. And honestly, try not to have broken links. I've run through some certain sites that do have links that get broken, and then it kind of like slows down the momentum that you might have after I've seen a really nice piece or two. If I run into something that I can't see, then it's going to be kind of disappointing. And those are the kind of things that I would expect somebody that's really interested to get in the industry have like the wherewithal to double check. And don't have poor grammar and spelling. This kind of goes back to the very first thing on the last page saying that you should run spell check and grammar check. I used to not do it before, but now I religiously do it. Like it's a tool that's provided in most word editing programs. So definitely run that before you put anything out there. And don't overcomplicate things with the experience. So along with that, like whatever work you might have, always find yourself trying to do new work. I think that's one of the things that like internally as our team, we all aspire to do. And I'll kind of lean into the next few things. Here are certain challenges that you can kind of participate in. ArtStation's got some really great ones. There's November, there's 5-Day Motion Graphic Challenge. March of Robots is coming up. And these are all like prompt-based challenges that kind of show us if we see you doing these kind of rituals, we know that you're there trying to improve your skills, participate, staying creative and whatnot. This year, when I joined Iron Galaxy, we did Inktober together, and it was fantastic. It was honestly something I looked forward to on a daily basis, to kind of get a drawing out there to show my colleagues and kind of talk about it a little bit, and also help keep my skills sharp. Even when you're in industry, these kinds of things are great to do. But if you're looking to break in, having this like within your social media or connected to your portfolio or website is great, because it really shows us that you're dedicated to your craft. So let me talk about online presence a little bit. I think that's kind of where we're going to find out everything about you. Like back when I was looking for jobs like 20 plus years ago, I actually used to carry around a portfolio. That's not how they do it anymore. And thank goodness, because those portfolios were really, really big and heavy after a while. It was kind of a pain to carry around. But your online presence or online persona is really important. And these are the things it kind of consists of. It's going to consist of your website, your social networks, and your resume. All these things kind of can be harmoniously linked together to make it easy for us to find out your website, and then to potentially find out a little bit more about you if we want to kind of see, kind of your presence in the community and your presence of your evolving art. So things to consider when it comes to creating a website and online presence and whatnot. You can create a logo to identify yourself, but keep it simple. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It'd be great to see something like, like this, sharp and clean and really mindful, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. And then honestly, when you're looking for a domain name for a website, if you have the opportunity to get your own name, that's perfect, because that's who you are. And that's kind of one of the things that, kind of like stamps like, all right, if I'm looking, and honestly, if I'm looking for you and I remember your name, I'm going to try to type that .com. And if you got it, if you have the opportunity to do that, that's great. There are a lot of other options out there these days, but like, if you have the opportunity to get your name as a website, I would definitely do it. And have a profile picture. I think and use it across all the platforms, because if you're using your profile picture within your website, perhaps on your resume, perhaps on your LinkedIn, perhaps on your Instagram account, we'll recognize you and we'll see you. We'll visually know who you are. And don't forget to link all your social network accounts to your website and portfolio, because that's kind of like the trail of how we find out a little bit more about your presence and your evolution, and then kind of where you've been and what you aspire to. Because honestly, when we're looking to hire, like there's only so much we can know about you. And then if we have more interest, we want to find out a little bit more before we kind of take the next step. And that's our opportunity to kind of find the best fit for our studio. So when it comes to a website, this is a website, a sample of a website that I would, kind of I want to point out some points that you don't want to do. The name of the website is nothing to do with this individual's name. It's, doesn't really relate to too much. And it kind of like just shows that like they weren't really thinking about who they were and their identity as a creative. I have a hard time reading this composition. It kind of breaks up a little bit. And part of that is because there's a lot of work in progress here as well too. And honestly, the mixed media types really kind of throws me off. If this individual wants to work as a concept artist, while I see maybe one or two pieces of concept art, I see a couple of 3D pieces here, some work in progress stuff, some graphic design stuff. And in some of this, like I was saying before, the composition is a little hard to read. Like I'm not exactly sure what they crop down to in that one lower image. So these are kind of things you definitely want to avoid. Here's a site that you probably want to kind of mirror things after. Like this is like a really great example of a site that shows that this individual, Travis Overstreet, he's a senior concept artist. He's displaying concept art on the first page. He's a clear name. There's a clear title. It's very well organized by type of work. We're looking at the 2D stuff, and there's a couple sections. So, like if he's applying for a concept artist and I like his concept art, and that's the next thing I'm going to do is click to his next section. But that's the one thing I want to see first, because he's a concept artist. This is what I want to see first. And he's using a popular platform for this. I think you guys might recognize this as an ArtStation-based website. He's using a popular platform for this, and they make it really easy for you to kind of build out your site this way. So here's a good URL as well. It's overstreetart.com. Unfortunately, Travis probably was not able to get travisoverstreet.com, but he did go to the next best option. He's, his last name and art at the end never hurts. It's really easy to remember and very recognizable. So since I was interested in his website, I was able to dive in a little bit and look at the story of the presentation. One of his pages is presented really nicely. There's a clear story. It shows his process, and it shows a nice finished piece at the very end. So when it comes to your social networks, like I was saying before, you have all these networks here, the LinkedIns, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and there's, other ones that are kind of popping up here and there as well. Like you've got your Twitch and whatnot, and all your other streaming platforms, and even YouTube. Like brand yourself consistently across all this stuff, and it's going to be really easy for us to find you and learn more about you. And it'll actually easily expose you more to searches and kind of being on the map for people potentially looking to hire. Here's an example of a good resume on the right and a not so good one on the left. And there's some really easy things you kind of plot here. If you look at the resume on the right, the things that you kind of see are things that are blocked out really nicely. The name is displayed on the top. It's really easy to read. The data is really relevant. You have like your professional profile, your work experience clumped there. Right below it is your education. It's a really quick glance, and I already know kind of a little bit of the history of the person. The resume on the left, I mean, it does display the name on the top, but everything's center aligned and everything is in the same font size. There's no breakups or blocks here. And it's actually kind of just poor design. So it's just me reading through a giant one column of text. So try to avoid that, because I think we're all visual people. We're all artists here, and you're appealing to other artists. When you have like a nicely arranged resume, we're going to notice, and we'll remember that. So cover letters, I feel like this is something that not everybody agrees on, but I personally feel that a really nice cover letter is really, really good to have. There's a purpose in a cover letter. It lets you introduce yourself to us. We let to learn a little bit more about you, why you think you'd be a great fit. It gives you the opportunity to tell a story about yourself and your skills that's not displayed in your resume or even just work. You can, express to us some of your passions. And again, like, we're looking for great fits, and we're not just looking for people to create art and that's call it a day. We're looking for people to be a part of a team. And then the very last thing about a cover letter is you can always add a call to action at the very end. You can end it with something to the nod of like, hey, if you really enjoyed what I did, please feel free to reach out to me at this time, at this address. I'll be available at here or there and whatnot. And it kind of gives me the idea that now I've rolled the ball into the hiring manager's court with this cover letter. And if I'm interested, that I'm going to file a response, or I'm going to find out more and click over and like ask Tom per se to say, hey, let's follow up with this individual. So I think a really good cover letter is really nice to have, because sometimes it's hard to tell more about a person just from their work. If you get to the point where we love your work and we feel like you might be a great fit, this would be something that kind of tilts it over the top, where we take you to the next phase. So as I dive into this last slide, I kind of want to introduce Tom Carbone Jr. I want to bring him up here before we get into questions and a little bit of story time. I wanted to kind of bring him over so he can tell you guys about our potential future opportunities at Iron Galaxy. So Tom, why don't you take it away?
Great, thank you, Roger. That was an awesome little talk right there. I've looked at a lot of resumes and a lot of cover letters at Iron Galaxy, and I wish everybody had seen Roger's talk right there. So definitely study that. There's a lot of really good tips in there. So like Roger said, before we take some questions, I wanted to quickly let you guys know of some availabilities we have at Iron Galaxy. We're hiring a lot. We have been for the last year or so. So right now in our art department, we're hiring for a concept artist, an environment artist, a technical artist, a VFX artist. So those are 4 jobs we've got. We've also got a couple of leadership roles in the art department. So depending on who's watching this, you might not be a fit for these ones, but I did want to highlight them. We're hiring another art director. We're also hiring for a lead environment artist and a senior technical artist. And if you're not an artist, if you're just watching the stream to kind of hear more about the industry, or you're, a programmer or something, definitely still look at our website. We're hiring for a lot of different positions right now across design, production, engineering. This is probably the most jobs we've ever had open. And so there's definitely opportunities for a lot of you, I'm sure. So definitely take a look at the website, irongalaxystudios.com/careers to get to our job board. You'll find all the full job descriptions and learn more about what it's like to work at Iron Galaxy. There's a blog on there, and there's some information about benefits and things like that. So take a look at the job descriptions. I do want to caution you, though, if you get to that requirement section towards the end of a job description and you realize that you don't meet each and every last requirement on there, don't feel like you have to just close out the tab and you can't apply anymore. For a lot of companies, this is sort of like a wish list of what we hope that the candidate has. But if you have a few of them, you've got the majority of them, you're still good to apply. Don't feel like just because you don't have that, that one requirement that you're suddenly not able to apply anymore. We definitely don't exclude people for that. As far as hiring during COVID's been going, so we're all working from home until at least July 2021. We're not going back until vaccines are all over the place and people are comfortable with working. So that policy has been extended to everyone that we're hiring now. So we've been hiring during COVID since it started in March. I think we hired over 60 people since last year, so in a little under a year. So that's all being done remotely. All onboarding is being done remotely. We're shipping equipment to people right at their house. Consoles and dev kits and monitors and computers are all getting shipped to people. And so that's something that we're still going to be doing through COVID. That being said, if you're remote and you get hired, you can stay where you're at. Say you're in, Los Angeles and you get hired. We'd still need you to basically pick a studio that you would like to work at. So we have studios in Chicago and Orlando. And basically when you apply for a job and you get hired, you get to kind of select which one you'd like to work at. So there's pros and cons to both. It's pretty cold right now in Chicago, but I like the food better here. So you'd have to kind of make that decision for yourself. And then quickly, before we get to the questions, which I know you guys have a lot of, I've been watching chat and been seeing some great questions. I wanted to kind of outline quickly what our hiring process looks like in the art department. So when you apply, like these guys have been saying, we get a ton of applications and we start reading through them. If you make that first cut that you're going to advance in the process, you would do a Zoom call with someone on our recruiting team, probably our recruiting manager, a guy named Jack. He would talk to you about why you're interested in the job, hear about where you're living, what you want to make, et cetera, et cetera. From there, you would do a Zoom call with people on our art hiring team. That could be someone like Chad or Roger or some of our other leaders in our art team. Depending on the job, from there, you might have a art test. Where we'd give you a few days and some assets and things like that, where you would do an art test for us and you would submit that. From there, if your art test went well, you would have a day of Zoom calls with various members of our team. So this part would kind of replace the traditional on-site interview where we'd bring you in, show off our cool studio, introduce you to the team, take you to lunch. We still, want to be able to do something like that even during COVID. And so this would be the day where you would talk to various members of our team, maybe a design director, or maybe an engineer, to talk about how you would work with them. So that would be the gauntlet that you would go through. From there, it would either be, a hire or not hire, hopefully a hire. But if you've made it that far, you've definitely been doing something right. So yeah, if you are interested in any of those roles I talked about, please feel free to check out the website, apply, and you can follow up with an email directly to me if you'd like. There's my email right there on the slide. And like Roger said, definitely highlight your portfolio, have a hyperlink that we can click on and easily get to. And I tend to agree with Roger on his philosophy with cover letters. I think that even submitting something really quick, even if it's like a paragraph or something that explains why you're interested in the role, or what things that you're good at that might be good for Iron Galaxy, it's always a plus. There's never a downside to submitting, a little bit of text about why you might be interested in it. And if you're sitting there stuck, like, what do I put in this cover letter? I have no idea. Google's failing me. Go back to the job description and look what we're looking for and kind of talk about how you could do X, Y, or Z, or what you've done in your career that aligns with what we're looking for. Kind of make us think that, you're ready for that job and that you've read the job description and you know what you're applying for. That would definitely be my biggest piece of advice on that. So with that, I think that we're ready for some questions if you guys had any. I know that Gnomon's been collecting them in the background.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we've got the screen set. We're good to go for some questions. Yeah, I've got a few that have queued up here, but guys, also please just feel free to continue typing your questions in the chat. As they come in, we'll do our best to address them. And I can't stress enough, if you're out there and you're watching and you're aspiring to have a career in this field, I mean, this is a unique opportunity to get to sit with these guys and ask your questions about what you feel like you need to know to pursue that. So let's bring the questions in, but I'll start with the top of my queue here. And guys, thank you also for just a fantastic presentation. That was great. Super informative for me as well as for our audience. Let's see here. Okay, so first question, for the concept art team, is it possible that their role can be changed during certain situations? Also, okay, so there's two questions. First question is, within your concept art team, do you find people moving between different things, like somebody who's doing characters maybe kind of jumps over to work on some props or maybe some environments or something like that?
That's a great question. So yes, we've actually had a concept artist that first came on as a concept artist, and then got interested in environment modeling, and so started to work on some environment modeling, and then actually got interested in character modeling, and so started working on some accessories and on characters, and then moved into a character lead position. So we definitely have the ability to grow into different areas, not just the area that you came into, and we really just celebrate the growth of artists and where they want to grow. So where their creative juices are, and how can we support that? And so we definitely, yes, it's definitely, it's not just you come in and be a concept artist, but we would use any talent that you'd have.
Awesome. Yeah, and the second part of the questions, they were just curious to know, it looks like they're asking, gotta clear my question here. Does the game that says remastered, does that also include the port project? I think they were looking at maybe some of the games that you guys were advertising as a part of what you've done in your resume or your portfolio.
Yeah. So sure. So yes. When we remaster projects, we basically sometimes we port them. We also add to them, so we enhance the graphics and things like that. So we're bringing up the quality of all the art.
Okay. And then another question that's come in, how many styles should be in your portfolio when submitting if a person could do multiple styles?
I actually kind of think, depending on like where you apply to, like I think if you're applying to a place that, like let's say you're applying to like a place that's like into hyper-realistic style, like applying to, work on the Gears of War type of game, you probably want to cater your stuff towards that style. But if you're doing your research and you're applying to a place like Iron Galaxy, where we do a vast majority of different types of games, and you look through our game portfolio, we do appreciate somebody that has a level of diversity within style. Now, that being said, it has to be good. It's like if you have one style that's fantastic and one that's just kind of middle of the road, consider polishing that other one up. But I mean, we want to see consistency. But it's always great to see that people have flexibility to turn onto a different style, because that shows us that they understand the principles of developing the art, as well as the need for changing a style to adapt to a type of game.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then are people without, what if you don't have a digital portfolio? What if you're submitting a portfolio that, say it's some 2D illustrations that are on paper, pencils, paint, ink, stuff like that? How is that being received in the industry today if you are not submitting a digital work?
Real quick, I will say that the first thing Chad will ask me about if I send him someone without a digital portfolio is, can you send me a link to the portfolio, please? And, and I hate telling him, no, I don't have a link to the portfolio. It wasn't included. But yeah, Chad or Roger, that would be a good question for you on how you can navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see any artwork that somebody creates. So if they want to scan the images in and send it through the, with the PDF or something like that, I just want to see the art that, someone's going to create. So it doesn't have to be digital, doesn't have to be online, but just present it with your resume.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see here. What's a good way to show playable work like video games in your portfolio?
I've seen some good YouTube videos for sure of people showing off what they have created, whether it's in a class or if they're just kind of running through a project that they got to work on. So it's definitely, it's kind of hard for programmers. I always run into that where they don't really know what to put into their portfolios. And so showing off a project like that in a video form is really engaging, and it kind of is easier than reading a paragraph of text of, what systems they implemented or what, gameplay designs they created.
But I would say it's super important. Like I totally agree. I think you can grab videos from online, from YouTube or something like that. But I think it's really important to specify what you actually create on there. Like, did you create the environments, or did you create the prop, or were you working on VFX, and which ones? Was it the character ones or the environment ones? So it's really important to talk about what you did, and also, give the celebration to the rest of the artists that worked on it too.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Someone's also wanting to know, is a portfolio created in ArtStation acceptable? Maybe they're talking about just like linking you directly to their ArtStation feed.
Yeah, completely. I think the majority of the stuff that we look through does come through ArtStation. You don't have to have a dedicated site. There's plenty of platforms out there, and ArtStation is actually a great one to utilize. So, they make it really easy to show your best 10 pieces, no problem.
And I just a sidecar questions coming from me is because I'm always curious to know how much time are you guys, or maybe your recruiting department, are they kind of doing some scouting? Like, are they perusing ArtStation? Are they looking up certain topics in ArtStation and checking out artists, or how's that typically working in your industry?
I personally look at ArtStation every single day. Every single day I look at ArtStation. I love it too. It's like it's one of those things where like I get inspired by the stuff I see. But honestly, if I see somebody that's good, I'll ping Chad. Hey Chad, take a look at this person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so yeah, I look at it every day personally.
It's a little bit like candy to Roger. So
I like candy.
Low calorie candy.
I can add a little bit to that. In the last year or so, as we've been ramping up a ton more, we've had to get a little bit more creative about how we find talent. So for years, we were kind of doing okay with just having people apply to us. They found out about us a certain way and they applied and we hired them. Now we kind of have to go on the search a little bit more and find people that might be a good fit. ArtStation is absolutely one of the places that we go to. We have a paid subscription there where we post jobs, so we're already on there. We're already looking through it, and I've absolutely gotten people sending me, through our internal chat programs, like, "Hey, check out this ArtStation of this guy. Like, what do you think? Should we, maybe reach out to them?" Or, I found someone's ArtStation because they posted it on Twitter, and all of a sudden now I've got this great portfolio. So that's definitely, yes, I would recommend that for sure. 80 Level is another good one that I just found out about personally, but a lot of artists in the industry definitely know about. We peruse sites like that all the time and see if people are talking about, the work they're working on. LinkedIn as well. It's kind of, corporate and whatever, but make a LinkedIn account. You're going to find a lot of information about the companies you're applying through LinkedIn. We post a lot on there, but there's companies that do it even better. They're posting all kinds of stuff. There might be tips and tricks for your portfolio on there too. Like they're posting all their jobs. I would absolutely recommend following companies on LinkedIn that you're interested in working at.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a story on that particular thing. So when it comes to building out your portfolio, you can definitely use LinkedIn as a tool to leverage the studio that you're interested in, like potentially who might work there. You can find out light things like, the types of positions they have, like, the levels and whatnot. That will inform you better in terms of like how you curate perhaps your cover letter, perhaps your portfolio, and then to kind of lean into some of the other stuff that Tom was talking about. I think when it comes to like introducing yourself to the industry, say you apply to a place, or say we connect with you, but it might not be a perfect fit right now. Don't ever not hesitate to stay in touch. And I'm going to lean back to a little story of mine. So I met Chad 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I had interested in working at Iron Galaxy because honestly, I thought they were doing amazing work. They had a really great diverse portfolio, and some of the stuff that was upcoming seemed amazing. Unfortunately, 7 years ago, the timing didn't work out. Like, we had a great interview. Things looked really well. And I think Iron Galaxy was lining up projects at the time, but they weren't at the point where they were going to pull the trigger for the hire. But Chad and I had kept in touch. Unfortunately, I think a few months in, I had found another opportunity, a little bit like in another studio for the next 5+ years or so, which I did a lot of growing at. But when it came back to the next opportunity I had at Iron Galaxy this past year, like early 2020, I realized that Chad and I had talked 7 years ago, and it was such a great experience that like when we reconnected, it was super easy to pick up and kind of find out where I could fit and help Iron Galaxy in its growth and everything like that. So always don't ever hesitate to stay in touch, kind of keep a pulse and whatnot, just because maybe the first time around it might not work, and you might have like an opportunity to improve your skills. Always reach out, because there's a lot of times where like that kind of honestly shows us that like there's like dedicated interest because of we feel like that offers a really good fit, an opportunity for us to kind of reconnect with somebody that was already previously interested. So
yeah. And oh, sorry,
I was just gonna say, and with that, like, I remember the first conversation that I had with Roger, and so like it was an impression, and so like doing your best in the interview process, no matter what, right? And if you don't get it, there is other reasons why, right? Sometimes, and so there was no hard feelings, obviously, and we did keep in touch. And I think that networking and that we always are trying to collaborate and learn from each other. And I think that that networking is super important. I think reaching out to other individuals and other artists and learning from them is super important too. And you never know who you're going to run into because it is a super small industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in response to that story, I was going to ask the question for our viewers, what might some productive or better received ways for you guys, what would that look like for someone to stay in touch? Is it like, hey, I hit you guys up a couple months ago, I just want to let you know I've added some new things to my portfolio, or how would that work for you?
The way that I get it most frequently would be email. So if I've been the one that's been communicating with a candidate, they might email me a few months down the line. I get a lot of those emails, but Roger's story is not unique. We've definitely had other people that have applied again, or we've thought about again, or they've emailed again and asked if there's any new opportunities. And oh yeah, actually, we're thinking about opening up something in 2 weeks, and now you're the first applicant. Stuff like that.
Wow, yeah.
I've also had good experiences with connecting with people on Twitter, especially. So if I somehow figure out what their Twitter name is, or they find me, we'll stay in touch that way. They can DM me and ask me if there's anything coming up. I get DMs like that all the time. Or if I post new job stuff, I'll have somebody that applied a year ago hit me up and say, hey, like I've been working here for a year. I leveled up a little bit. Can I apply again? And that stuff's really cool. And throughout that time that we haven't been, super talking that much, or we didn't, we weren't connected, I'm still able to follow their work, and they're able to still follow me and see what's Iron Galaxy up to. Oh, they've been growing a lot in the last year. I bet you now would be a good time to hit Tom up again. So there's definitely different ways to do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned Twitter as a platform that you observe and communicate through. What about Instagram? I know a lot of younger artists are using that today.
We have an Instagram account. We don't typically message back and forth with candidates on there. Same with Facebook. I just haven't found as many of our fans on there candidates on there that are inquiring about information. That typically is happening a lot more on Twitter. That being said, I've absolutely gone through a lot of people's Instagrams before that, like, that's their portfolio link essentially. And so absolutely using Instagram as an artist that's looking for a job is still very important. But we don't really, I would say if you're trying to communicate with us, I probably wouldn't send us a Facebook message or an Instagram message. I'd probably start with an email. Or connecting with our Twitter account. Yeah.
Cool. Someone's wanting to know, what do you think of a scrolling style website where you have to kind of scroll down to see, is there any bias for or against that sort of a format to present artwork? If you're just going to scroll down through this, basically a scroller, right? Like just go down through the entire thing to see all of the...
I'm not opposed to that. I think actually I've seen some really creative websites like that. I will say this though, the first image has got to be good. Like it's got to be good, so I want to scroll. But yeah, I'm not opposed to that, and it could be like a fun transition.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think it's how you present it, right? And so if it's scrolling or if it's clicking through or if it's a link, it really depends on that formatting that you have and what you're showing right off the bat. Like, are you going to want me to go farther down the page, or are you going to want me to click through the next one? And that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great tip too. It's not always guaranteed that they're going to look at the entire portfolio. You gotta have that impact and leave them wanting more.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. All right. So is it better to focus on daily contests than personal projects? Even based on existing concept art or fan art. So I guess they're kind of sort of holding up, where should I invest my time? If I'm looking at daily contests or just doing personal work, which one should I lean into more? And they've got kind of a second tier, which is like, should I make concepts of existing stuff, or, just do kind of my own fanciful ideas?
I think there's pros and cons to both. And I'd love to hear Chad's ideas on this as well too. I think daily challenges are great just because for me, I feel like it shows me that this person's current and participating in a community first off. And then secondly, kind of like those challenges are usually time-based, right? So they're like, within the day, do a drawing a day and stuff like that. So it kind of shows me that they have the ability to start and finish something. and then they have like a progressive progression. And some of the daily contests too, which is great. You'll see an artist start the first day a certain way, and then you can see them get better by the 30th day. Like their stuff gets better. It's crazy. So I like that kind of stuff a lot. When it comes to doing like personal work, if you're doing personal work, like, there a story behind it would be really helpful, like your thought process, like, the concept behind why you wanted to do your personal work or your personal creation is great. Sometimes it offers us a little bit of sight into your creativity that might be outside of just the art part of it. And, like there's times where, like, Chad and I are talking about, potential concept artists say, oh, we were looking for somebody that can do concept art, but also have great ideas. So I think there's like a balance there where it's like, if you can see somebody with great ideas come along with the concept art, is always an addition. When it comes to fan art, I do fan art myself, but I don't always make it the focus of my portfolio. I wouldn't suggest that be the focus of your portfolio, but I don't see in any harm doing some fan art.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I think also in nature, like you mentioned about storytelling and sharing your work that way. If you say you're looking at ArtStation and you see a piece that you're just like, oh, I'm captivated by this, will you take the time to glance over and see if they've written, a description? Maybe there's a short story behind it, or just a description of their thought process?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
We'll definitely see that, as well as just see what other pieces did they make that is in the same world or the same lore. That's super important too. I'd say to add to Roger a little bit of like, I think the progression of those daily challenges they're not final pieces, right? They're just kind of a initial idea. And so, but we really like to see, that's interesting to see how they progressed over the month or something like that. But it's more interesting to me to see, take a concept and make it into 3D, and can they realize that in 3D, or do a personal piece for themselves, but really do it with a goal in mind. Like, I want to make this type of object, or I want to make this concept. So have a goal for yourself, and then try to achieve that and try to finish it to a high quality bar.
Yeah.
One other bonus benefit sorry, Roger, just real quick, to those challenges, especially if there's any social media element to them, if people are sharing their stuff on social media, you're going to be able to find other people that are doing this challenge along with you. They might be people that are already in the industry. We have people at our company that do challenges like this all the time. So you might run into people that are honestly like on the hiring teams at these places that might see your stuff. And even if that's not the case, if you just, start networking with people that are maybe at your same level, down the road, the industry's small enough that you might run into them again. So networking is definitely a benefit of these daily projects. You're getting better at art, but you're meeting people in the industry that are doing the same things as you are, and they're striving to do the same things as you are, and that's always beneficial.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think when it comes to the note of fan art, I wanted to add one small thing.
Sure.
So and here's an example of something that caught my eye. There was a guy that I follow online, and he's a great sculptor, and he was doing fan art of I think DC characters like the Batmans and Supermans, but the theme was doing like they were from the 1970s, like a 1970s style costume, material, sculpting. I'm like, that's really cool, and he brought it through all the characters, which was really neat. It's like, so it's a kind of like a fan art type of movement, but it's like his own twist on like the aesthetic, which I thought was a really cool reimagination.
Chad, we actually a couple of years ago we hired somebody, and one of the big things was that he had some Zelda fan art that was going viral right around the same time. One of our artists from Michigan State University, and it just so happened that like the day we were reviewing portfolios, I was reviewing them with somebody else that's not here, and Steven was like, "Oh my gosh, I saw this kid's work on Twitter today because it's going around," and it was fan art. It was Zelda fan art, and that absolutely got him an interview. He had a great portfolio as well, but that was like, okay, this kid's doing good stuff.
Yeah, that's totally true. And our entire art team is we're on these media sites, and we're looking at art, and we're artists, so we just like to look at art in general. So absolutely, yeah, I totally remember that as well.
Well, it kind of sounds like, fan art is not necessarily going to be the focus of the portfolio. Sometimes it's helpful to have something that you share in common with the viewer, so they know what it is they're looking for, and then when they look at your interpretation of it, you can kind of see the way that artist handled it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. I'm just catching up with where we're at here. So someone's wanting to know, when you're putting together a portfolio, let's say you do 2D and 3D work, They're wondering, is it okay to mix that together? Is it better to keep those disciplines separate? How do you guys feel about that?
So I guess it depends on the job that they're applying for. But I do like to see, like, if somebody can create concepts as well as create 3D, I do like to see that progression of that piece, and that they can, initially come up with a concept and that's really cool, and then realize that in 3D. That's super powerful, and definitely somebody that we'd be looking for.
Cool. Would that be an example of like a concept artist that that you could say, hey, well, you may not be as familiar with like retopology, at least you can hand some geo off to the ones that are going to be making it more efficient? Or what value does that add for you guys specifically?
Well, that's for us. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go first.
Okay, so it adds that we have multiple projects going on at the studio at the same time, and so sometimes we'll need a concept artist, or sometimes we'll need a 3D artist, and so it allows us to put them on a different project depending on the needs for those projects. But if it's somebody that comes in and that can sculpt really well but can't retopologize, then we will mentor them so that they can grow in those areas. So we definitely want to continue the growth of all of our artists, and in those areas that they're not as skilled at. And that's totally understandable. We're all not good at everything. So we definitely lean on each other for those growths in those areas.
Yeah, and to kind of lean over to like a 2D, 3D world in terms of concept art as well. I always actually kind of find it interesting and intriguing when I see concept artists that have 3D skills, or have like a little bit of that in mind, because I think you can use a little bit of that to add to a little bit of the other stuff, right? So you can, block out an environment and draw over it. I mean, like, the tools are there. It's going to make your concept art faster. And then I think, honestly, one of the keys of a concept artist is being fast. So like, them being resourceful with the tools that they use to complete their finished piece is always kind of helpful to know that they have that skill set as well.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's see. They're continuing to come in. This is great, guys. We got plenty of questions for you. Let's see here. Is Iron Galaxy open for internships and open to hiring students?
I can take that one. So this year is the first year that we're going to be taking interns that might not be graduating. So in the past, our interns have been students that are graduating, and we bring them on for an internship. And the idea is that if they enjoy the internship, and if we feel like it's a good fit for the company, we're just going to hire them at the end of the internship. The idea is that we're going to bring someone on for an internship that we think is probably going to be a full-time employee. This year, we're doing things a little bit differently. We're still going to have some interns like that, but we're, for the first time, going to be looking directly at students that might not be graduating that semester, or might need another year before they're graduating. So more information about our internships is going to be coming out next month. But what I can tell you is that, yes, we are opening internships this year in art. So you will see more information about that. There's not really a defined 3-month period that it's going to be. We're kind of going to let that be driven by school calendars. So if I don't know when Gnomon gets out or when there's breaks and stuff like that, but we would go kind of based off of that. And we're going to be doing that for our other disciplines as well. We're going to be looking at interns. So yes, that's something that we'll be doing this year. And those will be paid, and you'll be on the team. You'll be working on stuff with us. So those will be really cool. And there's a lot of people that have started an internship and then ended up with a job, and now they've been in the company for a few years and are doing really great. It's definitely a good spot to intern at.
Very cool. Thank you. Someone's asking, with the hiring process for environment artists, are there specific details that you look for that might highlight getting hired? Like, for example, showing UVs, LODs, specific details on props, etc.
Yeah, so well, we look through the entire process, honestly, for environment artists. If you are wanting to become a prop artist, then we want to look at the topology. We want to look at your sculpting ability. We want to look at how the UVs are laid out. I mean, there's no stretching and things like that. And then really, how's your texture work? And can you create PBR textures and really work with the lighting on that? So we kind of look for the full bore there of a piece, working through. Roger, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that's key. Like, I think if somebody's going to show their environment art and you show your finished piece, obviously, like you could do, if it's a prop, you could do it in Marmoset, which like I know ArtStation has a plugin where you can just like toggle around your stuff. But then honestly, we after we see that piece, we want to see how it was built. So I'll scroll down, I'll look for like the UVs, the low poly, the you know, the choices on what edges to bevel, potentially if they're doing something specifically for like a low poly, the poly counts, or they're just doing high, like, you know, high end stuff where they're choosing to bake things down, stuff like that. So.
Also to add to that, the telling of the story, especially with an environment, is super important. And so if you can tell the story of an environment, of a scene, or of a room, we look for that. Like, we're looking at the elements that you're adding into the world that you're creating, or that you know, experience that you're creating. So, you know, is there, you know, a bed that's completely made, or is there a bed that's just, you know, destroyed, or, you know, what story you're telling with your environment? And that's super important to us, is really looking at those details and telling the story that you want to tell.
Yeah, we've got a viewer who is just sharing that they struggle a bit with the whole cover letter, you know, and how to convey something effectively in their cover letter. Do you guys have any examples that you can share of what you feel has been a really effective cover letter for an applicant?
I think some of the ones that I've read that really actually made me want to know more is, well, obviously the work has got to look good when we look at their portfolio. But that being said, like if they have the ability to tell me what brought them to the position they're applying to, like when, you know, if I hear a story about their passion when they were young and this was their dream going all the way through, that's always really nice to kind of see the origin of the passion and, like, you know, where it started, where the fire started, you know, and like where it keeps burning and whatnot. So hearing a little bit of insight on that is always really helpful. And honestly, if we get applicants that are within industry, kind of hearing their experiences and what they've learned at previous places in like a short cover would be great too, because then we'll know like how they might potentially grow with us as well. But I wouldn't say a cover letter should be like, a cover letter is like a few paragraphs, you know, like in my mind, it would be an intro of who you are. You know, the second part probably would be why you think you would do well and fit within the studio and this position. And the last thing is like, is that call to action, honestly, like giving us that call to action of like, hey, reach out to me, I'm available here, and making it super clear that you're interested.
All of that was definitely good advice. One other thing I would like to add is it's definitely helpful, and this will go for any job you apply to go take a look at the website of the company you're applying to and read about them. Go look. Most websites are going to try and tell a story about the company. They might talk about their values. They might talk about the types of people that work there, and try to show off that you know that stuff. You know, I saw this interview that, you know, your CEO did about your company values and stability being a big pillar, and that really resonated with me because of X, Y, or Z. You know, it's definitely, it's not something you need to get too fixated on, like this cover letter has to be perfect, but like it's a really easy way to show that you're not just sending the same cover letter to everybody. It could literally be 2 sentences at the beginning that you copy and pasted in that's like, why Iron Galaxy? And suddenly I'm reading that and I get a little bit more excited. It happened just the other day with a position that we had that was getting tons and tons of applicants. It was like, this was a really, really solid cover letter that explained why this candidate thought that they would be a good fit with our culture and our values. And then it was like, all right, now let's look at the resume. I'm really excited to, like, you know, maybe pass this guy on to our hiring manager. So that's another way you can do it.
Yeah, it sounds too like cover letter is a chance to kind of highlight communication skills, right? Like, you know, when they're not making art, how are they to work with in the studio? Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome.
And I do want to, one last thing I want to say, that we don't reject people if they don't have a cover letter. I make their, you know, there's a box for your cover letter on our applications, but I specifically have it so it's not required. If you don't submit a cover letter, it's not like a, well, we can't hire this person, we're not even going to advance them. We advance people all the time that didn't have a cover letter. It's just a nice extra way to tell a little bit more about yourself and to, you know, give the hiring manager some info for your first phone call, so they don't have to ask you all the basics. You might be able to include some of that in there.
Yeah.
It also shows that extra effort that we love to see. Like, we love to see that extra effort of just tell us just a little bit about yourself. That's all.
Another viewer is kind of wanting to know, they're sort of stacking up quality of work versus industry experience. So the question is, would you prefer an artist with a high amount of experience, but their skills are just, kind of average? Or what if you saw an artist with great work, but they had very little experience in the industry?
It's a really fantastic question. I always look for the artwork. I will go for the artwork, absolutely, because I know we can teach them that what's the industry standards, and we can teach them the polygon counts and the texture sizes and all the stuff that you need to know about the industry standard. They can learn with us. So if they can create quality art, if they have a great visual eye, that's what I want to see. I would definitely go for that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think if you're being hired for an art position and your art is what's going to tell the story about who you are, like that's more important than like 20 years in the industry versus 5 years but with like amazing art.
Yeah.
We do a lot of hiring for positions where we're getting applicants that have never worked in the industry. They're not even old enough to have had a big, long career yet. And those people are still applying, right? So like they don't have that experience to list out, but they can show what they did in school. They can show that personal side project. I know that especially in our engineering department, our hiring manager there loves to see, if there's not that experience in another studio, that demonstration on the side projects that shows the interest and shows exactly what they're interested in is always very good. So if you don't have that big, industry thing that you can put on your resume yet, there's still plenty of ways that you can highlight your skills.
I'd also, to add to that, you can reach out and find mentors. There's lots of artists that want to help younger artists, and so reach out to them, have a mentor, and work with them to help them build up those skill sets that you may be not having yet, right? And I think that you can always show your skill sets with just working with a mentor, and they will work with you through the development and how we develop within an industry.
Wonderful advice, guys. Thank you. Let's see. In general, how are the chances of, and you guys kind of already addressed this a little bit, but maybe we can expand this a little bit more to the industry in general, for students fresh out of school coming into the industry. I know you guys have said that you keep your eyes, on that crowd as well. But at large, for students that are coming right out of school, how do you see younger artists finding their way into the industry?
I think that's where like having really solid work to make that good first impression really helps. Because like if they don't have the big project on their title, like Chad was saying, we still do look at the art. And there's a lot of times that we've looked at portfolios where like we sat down and said, this person is actually really good. We might not have opportunity for them right now because we're looking for somebody a little bit more senior, but we will remember them for like a future opportunity when we are looking to bring somebody that might be at like more of an entry level. So like the impression is still made, is what I'm saying, if the work is good.
Yeah, and then someone's also wanting to know, in design, is it also important to learn coding as well? For example, game engine coding and so forth, if you're pursuing more of a design-related position.
Well, I'd say none of us are designers here, so we'll have that caveat first. But I think there's different types of designers, and some of those designers are more technical and can script and things like that. And then there's other designers that are more either for gameplay or combat or things like that, which are not as scriptable. So I think it depends on the position you're looking for.
Definitely. And to add on to what Chad's saying, if you're somebody that's a designer or even an artist, but you've got those technical chops, it's definitely worth exploring if you can make that, part of your portfolio. If you want to make that part of your career, those are definitely those types of roles are hard to fill for us. Someone that is a great artist that also is a great coder or knows what their way around. So don't if it's not fun or you feel like you're not really enjoying it, don't force it. Don't feel like you have to code to become a good designer or an artist. But like if you're somebody that's not like me, but someone that's really good at math and things like that and coding, use that to your advantage. You'd be surprised how many jobs are out there that are catered to people like you that can do both things.
Yeah, I often hear how often, very often, technical art positions tend to be in demand. That studios are looking to fill those.
Absolutely.
All right.
We have a technical designer and a technical artist position open right now. So
there you go. Awesome. Let's see. Someone's wanting to know if you do game cinematics in-house or do you align yourself with another studio? And if you do them in-house, are you regularly how are you regularly building the team for that?
So that depends on the project itself. We have used outsourcing to do cinematics before, and we have created some of our own cinematics. It really depends on the scope of the project and how much we need to do for the game. So in-house, we'll use our animators that can create cinematics as well as create animations for the game. But mostly we outsource for those types of jobs, just because we don't have a full cinematic team at Iron Galaxy.
Now we've got someone who is they're asking if they are a 3D character artist. They're curious to know, what if they're considering certain types of characters to put in their portfolio. What are some examples of types of 3D characters that stand out to you guys? What's going to kind of stick up above the sort of status quo of what's out there?
That is a vague question.
Yeah, it's a complex one too. Maybe, or unless you've got something.
Again, it's not necessarily what you're going to make. It's the quality that you're going to make it at. Like I'm going to look for the quality, and I'm going to look for the, how's the UVs, are the UVs nice, and do the, are you hitting those edges correctly, and and all that organicness, and are you playing with the shapes and the materials of the character itself? Do I see the metal, and do I see the rubber materials, and are those separated? So it's really that quality. It's not necessarily about the what the theme is, or the type of character it is.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think if people are choosing to go down a style path, it would definitely help if they kind of study the path of that style first. It's kind of like if you're doing something that's super cartoony, like, are you doing something that is, where joints and limbs all behave a certain way, maybe more fingers are more squares, or where else is that line quality or motif communicated, things like that. If you're doing something hyper realistic, how hyper realistic do you go? Like where do you take the materials and the rendering on that? We want to see that kind of consistency across the character. Like Chad was saying, the quality of that piece will make a big difference, and like the thoughtfulness in terms of how they push that style actually will show through that way.
And I'd say try not to kind of fake it, so like if you're trying to do a character that's a hand painted textures, don't use an algorithm to try to create this hand painted texture effect. Like we really, because we can tell through that, right? We really need to see those strokes and see the quality of the paint and stuff.
Totally. So someone's just wanting to know, they're curious, are you hiring for juniors, or is it more mid-level?
Yes, we're hiring for juniors.
Awesome.
I was just pointing at Tom.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. We hire juniors. That's definitely a big part of our hiring. We've been doing that for years. So definitely, when you're going through the jobs that are open, you'll get a sense in the requirements if something is more on the junior level, or if it's something that's more in the mid-level to experienced. And like I said when I was talking about this stuff, I guess go ahead and apply. If you feel like you're a fit for it and you match up with most of the requirements that are on there, like I said, apply. It can't hurt. But like Roger said, you definitely don't want to apply to every single position. You don't want it to be, all you're trying to do is get in at Iron Galaxy, because that can kind of backfire. But we definitely hire juniors. We hire people right out of school. We hire people that didn't go to school that are ready to get into the industry because they've been working on the side and they've got some cool stuff. There's, I guess you probably have to be like 18. I guess is probably like the one requirement we've got. I don't know. There's definitely not legally, right? We hire juniors though, for sure.
Yeah, so if you're legally an adult and you're breathing.
That's right. I'd also say that the other thing at our studios is that we feel that we're all creative and we're all artists, and we're all trying to push ourselves to grow as artists. So I'm not done growing. I know Roger's not done growing, and so we're all helping each other and supporting each other in that. And so, and junior artists that come on board, we have that same growth, and we team them up with our other artists. We grow them in the areas that they want to, and we really want to achieve that growth throughout our departments.
Yeah, I think speaking of growth, you mentioned earlier how you look for opportunities to continue to expand the skill sets of the artists working at your studio. I was just curious, in navigating that, are you because obviously if someone's going to learn something they don't know, it takes a little bit more time to accomplish it. So are you looking for opportunities in the pipeline where maybe there's a little bit of extra time and saying, hey, we want you to jump on this and we're going to kind of coach you through it? Or what does that look like?
So first off, we just talk to the individual. We want to see where the individual wants to grow. I don't want to push upon a growth that they don't want to go in that direction. So that's the first step is where does everyone want to grow, and look at that individual and then see if there's opportunities either in the current project that they're on or maybe a project in the future that they can do that. If there is some extra time in the project, which it doesn't happen that often, but if there is, then we'll definitely allow that growth and team them up with somebody that has an expertise in that area to work with. We also team up people that just if they have an area they want to grow and there's a senior say environment artist or somebody like that can help them, we'll team them up and make sure that they know hey, this person wants to grow in environments and they're a concept artist, and then they'll start collaborating and talking together and working on things. So it's a very collaborative department, and we just really work together to help each other.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a great atmosphere as far as your team is concerned.
It's definitely at Iron Galaxy a very good spot to get your start, also in terms of being able to work on a wide variety of things. So if you're coming out of school and you don't exactly know what you're wanting to work on yet, you don't exactly know what your biggest passion is, if you come to a place like Iron Galaxy, which is a pretty unique spot in the industry, you might be working on 2 or 3 different projects that year that could be, one's hyper realistic, whatever, and one's a first person shooter, then there's a cartoony brawler or whatever. You might be working on a bunch of different things, and you might start to hone in on what exactly it is that you're the best at or what you're really working towards. And from there, Iron Galaxy can kind of put you on projects that might be of more interest as they get to know you. And it's definitely one of the perks, I would say, for younger artists. You can definitely go to a AAA studio and that's going to be awesome for your resume. You're going to work on the same game for a few years and you're going to have some killer pieces at the end. But if you want to work on a few different things and kind of see where it is that you're most interested in, or try out a bunch of different things, Iron Galaxy is definitely a unique place that you can actually do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we were talking before the stream a little bit about the difference between where you have a high volume of projects versus staying on one game for a few years. I was just curious to know if it is quantifiable on the average, how many different projects do you see come through the studio, say in a year?
So we work on it depends on the year, honestly. So
of course, yeah.
It depends on if we're what I didn't we didn't talk about is the technical projects, which our programming teams work on. So what I showed was more of the creative side of things, but we can work up to 15 projects at the same time.
Wow.
In the studio. So it varies. So but yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities definitely to be had.
Very cool. All right. So I'm sort of deciphering the question. I get the impression that maybe they're wanting to know if you hire international artists, and would you, or do you ever outsource? Do you work with international freelancers? Or what kind of opportunities exist for someone who might be outside of the country?
So I can take the first stab at this. Chad can maybe talk about outsourcing and stuff like that. The last few years, visa sponsorships and immigration in general has been a bit of a hurdle for obvious reasons. And now that's, might be a little bit different in the future here, we're definitely looking into how we can revisit immigration and look into sponsoring visas and things like that. We don't have anything firm set in stone right now about, how that's going to look. So we definitely prefer artists that are citizens already. But that's not to say that that's not going to change. We're still looking into how we're doing it, and we've had good experiences with visas before, and people working in our studio from outside of the country. Chad, was there anything you wanted to add, or was that about it?
Sure. For outsourcing, we do use vendors for outsourcing, but we also use individuals. So it really depends on the project, and we use that just because we don't want to grow too fast, and there's a lot of talented artists out there already. So we do contract some outsourcing.
Mm-hmm. if someone was looking to do that, would they just reach out the same way they would for a position, submitting resume or whatnot, or is there a different way to go about that?
So I would say go to our website, and there's an email that you can send to, and just put that you're looking for contract work in that, and it'll get to the right people.
Oh, okay, great.
That's true. There's also been, we've had it where someone will apply, say for the concept artist position, they might write in their cover letter explaining their situation, and that's also a good way to get your materials submitted at the same time, but also note that, hey, I'm a contractor, I'm from X, Y, or Z, and then we can figure out the rest of it from there.
Yeah, cool. All right. Another viewer is saying, I've already established myself with my portfolio and social media with a name that's not my real name. I've also applied to some studios. Some studios do not mind, others do. Is this something I should be concerned about? Like if a lot of their work is out there and not under the actual legal name that they would be applying with?
I guess I would want a little bit more context, like if it's like this whole other alter ego or something that might make it confusing. But in general, I've gotten this before. I've had people apply to the company that have some weird one single first name as like that's their whole thing and that's all over everything. That's their email address and stuff. And it can be a little odd, but it's not like a deal breaker or anything. You're eventually going to have to tell us your real name so we can fill out the paperwork and everything.
Yeah.
But I would also say that for your resume and things like that, when you're submitting things officially, I personally would probably try and keep your real name as like the main focal point. You can have links on your resume that show, what your name is that you go by out there, because there's lots of people that have like their handles that they've been known by for a very long time, and there's a way to include both of those to show off that you're, here's what I am on Twitter and Instagram and my portfolio, but here's me as well. Here, I'm a real person. Here's my full name. Definitely. Cool.
And someone's wanting to know. When they're weighing out as they start to curate the work that they want to send your way, the nature of the question is they're looking to balance out their own art style and what they tend to do a lot in their personal work, but also, should they be including obviously styles that fit maybe some of the range of projects that your studio has done?
Yeah, I think they should. I think definitely if they have the ability to show like their range, it's very important. Like I said before, and I think Chad had said as well, like it's the quality of the work that really does matter. If the style is different, that's totally okay, as long as the quality is there. And when there is quality, we will explore more. We will definitely click through more. We'll look through more sections and whatnot. So we just need to know that the quality is going to be there for us to kind of continue to look through.
Cool. All right. And then someone's asking, what tips do you have for an artist experiencing creating hard surface and organic models for animation and they want to transition into a game environment art position? So yeah, I'm sort of parsing out the nature of the question myself. Maybe we should just take it to mean someone that's not doing environments, that's doing more hard surface models, assets, stuff like that. They've done some organic sculpting as well. Someone moving from individual assets or characters to being an environment artist. How do you see that transition?
That's a good question. I'm still not exactly sure, but I think like so with the characters, obviously they're working with the tech artist and making sure that their edge loops and everything else is in the right form. With environment artists, if you have the skill sets for the hard surface modeling as well as organic, that's great. Like we definitely have organic, environments. We also have hard surface environments. So I think that's pretty easy to translate over to environments. We have our 3D team, the character artists and the environment team artists can work on both. Like we will switch them back and forth and sometimes ask them to swap. So I think it's a very easy transition to move over to the environment side. If he's talking about an engine, that might be a little different. That may be what they're talking about. And that's if they're talking about building out environments in the engine, that's getting that more into the set dressing and layout and things like that. And that's really working with designers and just figuring out how to portray the world with set dressing, with little, little bits and pieces of like mailboxes or, telephone poles or whatever you're trying to do to design that world out, and working with design so that the gameplay is there. So that may be where they're going with that. But I think the transition just from modeling is very easy transition over from characters to environments.
Okay, cool. And then we've got a student who's asking, if you've just graduated and you're starting to apply, obviously this would be a person that has a lot of student work on hand, but how much student work is too much for a portfolio? What's the ratio there that you prefer?
If they have a ton of student work that's high quality, like I was saying before, there's a likelihood that you've done a lot of work in your first and second year, but your last year is probably your strongest year, like your third or fourth year is strongest year. So as long as the work from like you're taking, and if you're reevaluating your second year work, just make sure the quality is there and that you would reapply your learned skill set from the previous, that you've learned now to your previous year's project that you're remastering perhaps your first or second year projects, or you're remaking them or whatnot. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, student work is not frowned upon, especially if it is of quality. And there's a lot of opportunity to kind of look at other portfolios. Like, one thing I would actually also recommend is look at other people that you admire, their portfolios, and like, oh man, I really want to do what they're doing. See what they have on there and see kind of like the level of quality to kind of see where you might land and kind of mirror that way. If your student work's of that quality already, of somebody that's been in industry for a couple of years, and you apply, we'll notice that it's like of quality. We'll notice like, hey, they're pretty darn good and they just started out. Like, let's talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously a lot of times, studios see a diamond in the rough and they want to make the investment to bring that person in, for sure. Yeah. All right. Another question. What do you look at with hard surface concept work? And for that, let's see, including utilizing paintovers of 3D for props, vehicles, mechs, etc. When a portfolio has more character and architecture environments overall. I'm sort of parsing out the question, but let's say that this is a person who is wanting to do hard surface concept, like concept out some vehicles or mechs or things like that. What are you looking for someone going after a position like that when their existing portfolio has more characters and architecture and environments in it?
Let's see. Well, I think I'm looking for somebody that would do a personal project. Really, would like take a personal project, would build out a 3D environment or a 3D car, and paint over that and show me that cool factor that you can make from your concept, from your 3D block out to the concept itself. So I would do a personal project on that if that's what you really want to do, and get that in your portfolio, because I don't think that's bad to show personal projects if that's what you're really excited about and you want to show other companies, and that's definitely what I would do.
Okay, so kind of like I did other types of work on these professional projects, but I'm really passionate about this. So here's some personal things that I took on and motivated myself to do.
That's right, because we love seeing like self-motivation, right? We love seeing like people going the extra mile and stuff. And even though, like, Roger talked a little bit about like, try not to show your work from your school and stuff like that, but that's what you have to show, and that's what your best work, then do show that, right? You have to show something. We want to see a portfolio. So but yeah, if you have professional work, you can show that, but definitely if you're looking for that a car or something like that you're concepting, then put that first and put that foremost and really nail that.
Yeah, there's also a lot to be said too. If you're doing something previously, like a lot of types of work, like perhaps characters and other stuff, and we can tell that you're proficient in that, it's very likely that when you change gears that you will be proficient in this other stuff too, because some of the visual principles do blend, and the techniques can kind of blend over as well too. So it'll be easy for us to make that connection.
Yeah. All right. And then another artist wanting to know if they're using ZBrush primarily for making hard surface modeling, does that add value? Like, they're coming in wanting to be a hard surface modeler, but they're primarily using ZBrush to accomplish that. How would that read for you in portfolio work?
I feel a tool is a tool. And so if you can get the work done and you get to the quality that we want it, that's just the tool that you use. So that doesn't matter to us.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. And then are generalist portfolios taken as seriously as specialized ones?
So that's a fantastic question. So I would say yes, but we do still like to see that you have a passion for something. If it's a passion for a character or a prop or the environments, we do like to see that passion's there. If it's just a little bit of everything, then I'm not really sure what that person really wants to do and really passionate about. So I'd like to see the passion, but if you can do more, 3D content or more areas, then I like to see that as well.
We've got another question. It seems to be from someone who's interested in concept, and they're wondering, should I focus on drawing just one specific topic, such as animals, etc., or should I learn to do a little bit of everything? Creature designs, figurative studies, faces, environment design, etc.
I think that depends on where, like, the type of position and where you're applying to some degree. Because I know that there's specific positions that people might look for, like an environmental concept artist, because that's what they're looking for. That's what they need. So I think it kind of depends on that. I know there's a wide range of conceptual styles to tackle. But like, again, if you're doing creatures and you want to be a creature artist, then that works. But if you're doing only creatures and you're applying to a place that does hyper realistic, military games, and you're doing fantasy creatures, it might not land. I don't know, Chad, if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think as I said, there's many different areas of concept art, right? And so when you're younger and you can get in the industry just with one piece of your portfolio, that's great, because we have concept artists that just work on development concepts. They work on creating those orthographic views of the mesh for our 3D modelers, and that's fine. But then they can start learning and growing in the illustration areas, or in maybe graphic design or some areas. So I would say focus on some area that you're passionate about, that you can do really, really well and you want to learn, and then get in the door, right? And then you can start branching out, because like I said, we have concept artists right now that are growing in other areas that they didn't have the skill sets when they came to Iron Galaxy.
Yeah, and I mean, a reoccurring theme here that I keep hearing you guys talk about is how at your studio there's always that possibility to grow in an area that you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And and it sounds like you're really interested in artists that that want to stick around for a while and expand and become more valuable and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes.
Awesome. So someone's saying, I've seen many companies put education as a requirement. Is that also the case at Iron Galaxy?
There's not any jobs that we have open right now that you're going to find an education requirement. For a bit, we had requirements on certain roles that you had to have worked at a studio before, and I found that was limiting our applicant pool a bit. So while that's still preferred that you've worked at a studio before, obviously, for something that's more than a junior role, that's also not a requirement. So no, if you didn't go to college, if a 4-year degree didn't work out for you for whatever reason, there's a ton of reasons why, that's not going to hold you back at Iron Galaxy.
And honestly, I think especially for art, I'm not looking at where you went to school. Like, that's not the first thing I look at. I look at your art, then your name, and then how to reach you if your art is good. Then I'll look at where you went to school, maybe. So
that's a very good point. I would say, yes, in engineering, it's going to be a little bit different because, you had to learn C++ somewhere. If you're self-taught, then that's one thing, and that's happened before. But for some of the other disciplines, college might be the only route that you can actually learn to the level that we're looking for. But that being said, we've had people that haven't. So it's definitely, like I said, there's not going to be a single job you find on our site that says you need to have had a 4-year degree to work here.
All right. And then someone's just curious, if you guys have any tips on where to pursue some art mentors, if they're looking for someone to provide some mentorship for them.
I think there's a lot of programs out there that you can look through. Like, if you look for art mentorships, you can find a lot of that stuff too. I've actually also found, like, I've had in my past have people reach out to me just via LinkedIn, say, hey, I really loved. I saw you worked here and here, and I loved the games that you worked on, and I was hoping maybe we could do a call. Like you can, kind of give me some advice. And like Chad was saying before, artists are very friendly, and we're very much there to kind of support the other artists in the community. So I think that's always been an avenue you can reach out to, at least start a conversation. And there's other places you can find somebody you could pay for mentorship and whatnot as well too. And those are also good. It just depends on kind of where you want to land and where you are in your path and growth.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chad.
No, I was just going to say, and reach out to other artists, because we've definitely mentored artists that have that are friends of friends of friends, and then we start to meet them. So I think definitely reach out to other artists, show them your work, or try to work with them, try to work with your peers. I mean, that's a great mentor. There's going to be other artists out there that have other skill sets than you have, and vice versa. And so just work with each other to improve your quality where you can. And then again, just continue to network, because I think that's the biggest thing, is that if we can network and we can bring in more mentorship.
Absolutely. Going back to what we were talking about earlier with some of that daily challenge stuff, there's going to be people in there that might eventually be able to be a mentor for you. And what Roger said is absolutely right. I had people reach out to me the same way, and I'm not an artist. People might reach out to me and, hey, I kind of want to work in HR in the games industry. Like, would you be willing to talk to me about how your path worked and things like that? So that's like a tactic that'll carry across through a lot of different ways in your life. Reaching out and being nice and not being mean if something doesn't go your way is really, really important. The industry is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, but it's still kind of small. You definitely don't want to leave a bad taste in anyone's mouth, and just be polite. You'd be surprised how far that'll get you with a polite message in somebody's Twitter DMs or LinkedIn. Asking for help, especially if you're saying something like, hey, I really like your work on X, Y, or Z. An artist might be like, well, that made me feel good. I would love to talk to you and help you out a little bit, because I was in your position before. And Chad's right. There's a lot of artists all of the artists that I've met at Iron Galaxy are all very, very nice people. And artists I've met at other studios. It's just a really friendly industry.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met an artist who, if they have the time, and if my ask is clear enough and reasonable enough, I've never met anybody that's not generous enough to stop and do what they can in the moment. It's such a generous community. We've got an interesting question that's come in. Someone's saying, if you're looking, if you're a bit older and you're switching careers, for example, they're saying, I have 20 plus years in photography, but I want to get into 3D. They want to know, would perhaps lighting and texturing be a good pathway to pursue or career to pursue, given their background and skill set?
I think that's one area that definitely, because of that skill set of setting up scenes and stuff for photography. I think also just cameras, like cinematic and cameras and things like that within 3D environment, 3D engines, is a skill set, and it's a tough one. And I think that would definitely correlate to photography.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, especially if you want to dive into games. Learning game engine camera systems will definitely benefit you, because
awesome.
they can be very unique, super powerful. But like Chad was saying, it's not always a well-surfaced skill for sure.
Yeah, I say there's not a lot of people out there that are very, very, very good at it in the games industry, and there's just few out there that can really nail great cameras. So that's definitely a skill that I would look for.
Cool. All right. And then I remember earlier on, maybe even just before the stream, you guys were talking about understanding the difference between what art director means, depending on context. We've got a question that's come in along those lines, and they're asking, does an art director more work with a team, or is it more to just kind of supervise individual artists? How would you describe that role?
I think it might be different. Industry-wise, it's different. And even for company-wise, it's a little different too. Chad, I'm actually going to lean it to you, because when I got brought on to work with Iron Galaxy, I think it was a newer type of a format that Chad had already been kind of building out in his head and stuff like that, and how kind of it arranges for us. And I actually find it to be a fantastic way to work and grow as an art director. But please kind of lean into that, Chad.
Sure. So, with the art director, and I agree with Roger, like this is not the standard across the industry. We do some other companies might do it the same way we do and might not. But the art director is really that overall vision of the game, the branding of the game. So they're working with the VFX and the UI and the the environment, and they're really directing that as a whole piece, like a whole art piece. And then the lead artist is implementing that vision. And so they're working with they're doing more managing, more day-to-day feedback to the artists on an individual basis. And so that art lead is in the engine, and they're working with the programmers and the designers and the other aspects of creating, but that the art director is, again, just directing the vision of the game visually.
Yeah, and I think we like that, to lean into that a little bit more too, is building a game can be surprisingly pretty technical, and like kind of getting in the weeds the day to day and making sure the actual game is going to run and things are kept like at par, especially with specs, is not. You can have like perhaps an art director do it, but they wouldn't have time to, like Chad was saying, oversee the vision of like what you want this to look like in the end as a holistic piece. So I think the breakup of what we have is an art director and art lead, kind of like a tag team pair. When it goes to working on a project, has been super successful, and I found it to be a really rewarding partnership and pairing.
To talk about maybe a little bit more detail, just to give it like an example of how that works out. I'll use Roger as an example. So he wanted to really blow out this character and add a bunch of stuff to it, and so the lead artist was like, you can't take that. Like, we don't have enough polygons and budget to actually add all this crazy stuff you want to do, Roger. And so they came together and figured out, if we add it to only these areas, it will really blow up the character. But we don't have to add it these other areas, even though I really want it, but we don't have to do that. And so they just work together to figure out like how can they get the visual quality they want with the rendering quality, or the rendering performance too. Yeah. So that's kind of how it works in a day-to-day fashion.
Awesome. Well, guys, we are pretty much at time.
Oh, wow.
And thank you so much for taking so much time with the questions. I know that's tremendously valuable for our viewers. And I'd say, Iron Galaxy sounds like an awesome place to work. And thank you for, hopefully a lot of people out there. I think you've also helped to maybe make applying for a job sound a little bit less scary, given some great direction. So thank you so much for both your presentation and the time you've taken with us this evening. Are there any last, I don't want to cut you off, any last parting words or thoughts that you want to kind of close out with?
I'll be Mr. PR here and say, please look at our website. We did cover a bunch of stuff, but there's a lot more detail about the projects we've worked on, some really exciting stuff on our website. Our careers page is going to explain a lot more about what it's actually like to work at Iron Galaxy. And then, that's kind of what I would recommend you do. There's a lot of great info on the site.
Yeah, very informative website. In fact, I was there before we started the stream, and it was
thank you.
Very helpful. You guys are very well presented, so thank you. Yeah, definitely.
And I just like to say thank you for all the questions. These were really great questions. I really appreciate everyone listening and just giving us our time.
Yes, that was awesome. There was a lot of really, really good questions.
Excellent. Oh.
Roger, I don't think we can hear you.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
I didn't even notice all the time has passed. When you said we're at time, I'm like, what?
Oh yeah. No, the time has flown. We were having fun. So thank you again to each of you for taking the time to kind of virtually travel out and do this event with us. Appreciate it. Just want to say quickly to our audience, Gnomon will be streaming again this coming Wednesday. Our Chief Creative Officer Josh Herman does a weekly art jam. It's a 3-hour art jam where if you're at home and you're working on your work, whether that's 3D, 2D, Josh is doing a lot of stuff in ZBrush. It's an opportunity for you to sort of have a wingman, as it were. But you can also type in questions to the chat. So that's on Wednesdays from 10 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon Pacific time. And then we'll also be back again on the Friday following next Wednesday. This is next Friday with Josh, addressing, looking at making creatures with ZBrush, but talking to 2D artists about ZBrush being an inspiring tool to work with. So we'd love to see you there as well. And so we want to thank our gentlemen here from Iron Galaxy who have been with us. And thanks for a great stream. Had a lot of fun chatting with you. And everybody just continue to stay safe, stay creative. And if you're looking for a job, send your work in Iron Galaxy.
Thank you.